rain had always unsettled me. Every storm carried a weight I couldn't shake. 2 years ago, that weight turned into the heaviest terror of my life. That night, the storm was relentless. Rain hammered the roof, water snaked down the window pane, dripping into the same spot over and over. I should have been used to it, but then came a sound sharp, metallic and steady, cutting through the roar of the storm. A rhythm, a shovel striking earth again and again. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe trash cans rolling in the wind, maybe something loose in the yard, but the sound never broke its pattern. It was too precise, too deliberate. I inched toward the window, parting the curtain just enough. The garden blurred behind the veil of rain. Shadows flickered, but nothing clear. Nothing human still. The sound dug into my skull. A rhythm my heartbeat began to mimic. Midnight, my phone screen glared back at me. 12:17, that's when the knocking started. A heavy fist against the door. My veins turned to ice through the peephole. I saw John, my neighbor, soaked, caked in mud, his hair plastered against his forehead. His smile was forced, his words rushed. Sorry about the noise, pipeline burst. Had to dig, pipeline, my chest tightened. There's no line here, I snapped. His eyes narrowed, and in that moment, the smile cracked, revealing something hollow beneath. He chuckled low, dismissive. Maybe I remembered wrong. Good night. When the door locked behind him, I couldn't move, the rain pounded harder. But all I heard was the scrape of shovel on stone. Minutes later, the doorbell rang again, softer this time, but insistent. John stood there again, a dim flashlight trembling in his hand. Battery's dead, need to borrow one. A simple request, but dread gnawed at me. Why was he still digging? Why at this hour? I don't have one. I lied, I killed the lights, drowned in the silence of waiting. Then came the tapping, not on the door this time, but on the porch, heavy, wet steps climbing the stairs. Lingering, then retreating. My pulse slowed, but then came it again. That rhythm, the shovel, the soil. I pulled the curtain once more. The storm blurred everything. But there in the mug was a shape. Hunched, low shoulders, rising and falling with each strike. The shovel's blade glinted faintly with each lift. My throat closed. I snapped the curtain shut. Sleep was impossible, but at some point, exhaustion dragged me under. When I awoke, it wasn't the rain that jolted me. It was the thunderous rattle of the front door. The knocker slammed the frame, shuddered as if being forced open. I backed away, cold sweat soaking my shirt. Then silence, a heavy scrape under the door. Metal probing the lock, the silence didn't last. Footsteps inside drawers yanked open. Cupboards, slammed, someone moving room to room, ransacking, searching. I froze, the steps grew louder. Closer, just outside, my door or the window. My only escape, my trembling hands fought the swollen frame, until it finally cracked open. I threw myself into the storm. Crashing into the muck, pain shot through my knees. But terror drove me forward. I stumbled into the street. Lights glow, my phone clutched tight, 911. My voice cracked as I tried to speak. When the police arrived, they found him inside, hiding, waiting behind the shower curtain. The house was in ruins, drawers overturned, furniture shredded, but outside, the garden was scarred pits, gouged deep into the soil, rainwater pooling in them like open graves. John never spoke a word, not about the noise, not about the digging now. Every storm carries that sound back to me, no matter where I am. When the sky opens up, I hear it again, the metallic rhythm of a shovel biting into the earth, just outside my window. It was the last days of summer, when the morning felt like a bruise, thick, humid, and uneasy. I slammed the door behind me and bounded up the apartment stairs. Coffee half drunk and forgotten on the counter, on the second step. I almost walked into someone standing on the upper landing. At first, my eyes wouldn't focus. Then the figure resolved into the elderly neighbor. Only he looked wrong, as if someone had sketched the shape of a man, and then erased the life from it. His face was hollow, his eye sockets sat like empty wells. His lips had the washed-out color of old paper. He stood perfectly still in the dim stairwell watching me. Not a casual glance or the distant politeness of a neighbor. An unblinking frozen stare that seemed to pierce. For a long second, I couldn't breathe. "Good morning," I managed, my voice too loud in the hush. He didn't answer. He drew a single, slow breath, then tilted his head the tiniest fraction to the side. Even that small motion was wrong, mechanical, like a marionette's gear catching. I wanted to run, to keep walking, but his gaze tagged me and wouldn't let go. For hours, the image sat behind my eyes, infecting everything ordinary about my day. The radio, the traffic, the bright office lights, none of it could wash him away. That afternoon, thunder rolled in, and rain began to fall. By the time I returned exhausted and damp, the building's tin roof sang against the storm. I climbed the stairs and froze. My front door wasn't shut. Through a thin slit of darkness beyond the latch, I could see shadow where there should have been light. My hands trembled as I pushed the door open. Papers had been scattered on the floor, the mail tossed like loose leaves. The kitchen drawer hung open, and there on the carpet leading to the bedroom, a faint wet footprint glistened. Fresh rain mottled my breath, turned shallow. Something had been inside my apartment while I'd been away. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I'd left the door ajar. Maybe the print was mine, but the house had a new hush now, the kind that listens. I moved toward the bedroom, every step heavier than it should have been. Shadows pulled in the corners. The air felt watched. Then I heard it, a tiny regular noise coming from the closet. A ticking, not a mouse, not the pipes. It was measured, intermittent, like someone shifting to hold their breath. My throat went dry, my hand hovered over the light switch. And then, steadier than I felt, I flipped it on the closet door, was cold under my palm. For a moment, I couldn't pull it. Some animal part of me wanted to run. Then, with a courage that tasted like panic, I opened it slow. He was sitting there, curled and still. Exactly the man from the stairs. The hollow face, the empty eyes, the same listless tilt to his head. He wore the coat I had cursed the week before when I couldn't find it. And in his hand, a screwdriver caught and held the light like a promise. He sat as if he'd been waiting a long time, as if my closet had been his chosen chair. My limbs went numb. I tried to speak, and nothing came out. He did not look surprised, did not rise. He breathed in shallow, soft pools that sounded almost polite. The idea that every inch of my apartment had been seen by him, watched, catalogued, crept over me like cold water. For a second, the world lurched, and I understood that the boundary between private and trespass had been crossed with the calm, casual patience. I turned to run. My screen tore out of me like a torn thing. He began to crawl from the closet in slow, deliberate motions, his steps heavy and certain. I slammed the bedroom door and fled into the hallway. The apartment bright and suddenly full of people's faces. Neighbors pressed against their doors, hearing the commotion, wide-eyed, small and distant. I called the police with shaking fingers. 10 minutes later, sirens screamed up the street and officers flanked the stairwell. Rushing in, they found him in my living room amid my upturned cupboards, rifling through drawers as if he owned the place. He didn't fight, he simply allowed them to lead him away. His limbs soft, his expression unreadable when they emptied his pockets. My stomach dropped there. Among lint and whatever else he'd carried was the key I'd been swearing I'd lost that week. A small copper notch that had made me late for work. As I tore apart the apartment, I saw it and felt the last of my denial slip away. Nothing physical happened to me that night, but the image did something to me that no officer could fix. The hollow-eyed man emerging from my closet, the way he had reclined there as if at home. The thought that anyone could sit in the dark of my wardrobe and watch me sleep, those images carved themselves into my mind. In my own bed, a few yards from where he had sat, I learned a new kind of terror. Even now, when I switch off the light and lie still, the closet door draws my eye. I close my eyes and listen for that slow, patient breathing in the hollow dark. And each time I do, I feel the old door in my hand, the weight of a stranger who knew my keys and my routines, and had waited until the perfect instant to step into my life.